Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 1. Problem number 1 states, based on Table 2, which of the 4 genes affects seed shape? First thing we need to do is scroll on up to Table 2 and start looking at the different genes. Here is Table 2 in the upper right-hand corner. Now, if you look over here, here is the genotype, and here is what we're interested in, the seed shape. So, by the process of elimination, what we can do is we can check over here each letter and see what happens to the seed shape. Let's get started. If you look over here in answer choice A, when we have a large A here, that will produce a round seed here. If we look down over here, we see a small a, and a small a will produce a wrinkled seed. But then we look down over here and we see it produces also another wrinkled seed. But also down here, a small a produces a round seed. So small a, round seed, large a, round seed. We can go ahead and eliminate answer choice A, which is gene A, because the fact that big A and small a do not affect the seed shape. They both can produce round seeds. We'll move on to the next one. Let's go ahead and take a look at the second column here, which is B. We have a large B, produces round, and then let's scroll for a small b. Here we go. Small b, and what does that produce? Wrinkled. Let's keep going. Small b, round. Round, small b, large B, round. So B can be eliminated as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at answer choice. The next one, letter D. Letter D, we have double D, large, which produces round. Then we come down here to small d, wrinkled. Small d, wrinkled. Small d, wrinkled. Large D, back to round again. Let's spot check it one more time. Large D, small d, wrinkled again. Small d, wrinkled. When we switch back to the large D, we should go back to the round if this is the gene that affects shape. Sure enough, it does. D works. So our gene that we're looking for is gene D. When we scroll back down to the answers, the correct answer for problem number 1 is going to be gene D, which is answer choice C. Let's go back up here and just continue on with the same logic here as we look at answer choice D, which talks about letter E. If you look here, the same logic we used throughout. Large E produces round. Small e produces round. Right away we can eliminate letter E out of that choice, the possible choices. We just simply have to go through. This is a painstaking kind of a problem, but this is what you need to do in order to come up with the correct answer. Number 1 is going to be answer choice C. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 2. Number 2 states, based on Table 2, a P. sativum plant with one dominant allele for each of the 4 genes will have which of the following phenotypes? A couple things here before we get started. The first thing that we need to do is we need to go up to Table 2. Then we need to look right away, and the information they give us is one dominant allele. A dominant allele from the mini introductory paragraph will be designated by a capital letter for dominant and a recessive gene by designating it with a lowercase letter. So they're telling us this. One of the alleles will have to have a capital letter in it. The first thing that we want to do is don't worry about all this other information here. Let's just start with the flower color. What we want to do is we want to go find white, find purple, and check. Do the white have any small, a double lowercase letter? If they do, that violates what they're asking us to do. Then we know it would be the other one. So let's jump on up and we'll start with the first one. So let's scroll back up to 2. And in table 2, let's start with letter A since it's the most logical. In letter A, if you look over here, here we have all of these A's that are capitalization. And when we look at the color here we notice for all of these is purple. So that tells us that a capitalization is dominant and the dominant color will be purple. Now let's go ahead and spot check our lowercase a's down here, which remember when you have a lowercase letter that will be a recessive gene, and let's see what happens to the color. The color here is now white. So this simply means that purple is dominant and white is recessive. So for our purposes, what we want to know is this. If we have one dominant allele, that means a capitalization, what color is it going to force this to be? Well, over here, if you see that there's lowercase, it's white, so we have 1. If you look over here, here is an example of what they give us in the passage. One dominant allele. There's one capitalization, and that gives us purple. Here is a confirmation. One more dominant allele and one recessive, and the color ends up being purple. So right away we know that we can cross out anything that says white based upon just taking a look at that. So in problem number 2, that means answer choice F and G are both out. When we take a look a little further, instead of continuing on and going through all of these different things, we already know that H and J say the same thing because they both say purple, because we've already checked those. And also H and J say green pods. Those are both the same, so there's no reason to check the pod color. And here it says round seed, and here it says round seed, so there's no need to check the shape. The only thing we need to check now is which one, if we have a dominant allele in one, will it produce a tall stem or a short stem? Let's jump back up here, and what we can do is we can go ahead and I'll show you some tricks here with the ACT. Remember, they told us to go to table 2, but sometimes it's easier to get the information somewhere else. So don't be shy to look around, kids, for other things. If you come over here, we're looking for the stem length, and here this throws it right in our lap. Here is the genotype over here and the stem length over here, and it gives us right away 100% tall. And what happens? So we know right away that this is going to be a dominant trait because these are all capitalization. Tall will be dominant. When we come over here, let's find all the smalls. We see over here, here is 100% short. If you look over here, small e, that's recessive. Small b, that's recessive. We need to have one dominant gene. That means we need to have one capitalization. Here there is no one capitalization because they are both lowercase. And because of that, they are short. Here is another example that both of these are lowercase. And when you have two lowercase letters, which is recessive, produces something short. Remember, we need one dominant gene in each one of the genotypes. So that tells us right away that this is wrong because there is no dominant gene here or here. And because of that, that produces short. So the answer is simply tall. When you scroll back down and take a look at the answers, you see that now we have narrowed it down to the correct answer choice, which is going to give us answer choice J, because we need a tall stem. This is a little bit of work, but use some logic, and remember, the secret trick here is this. Make sure you understand what you're doing, but sometimes when they tell you to go to table 2, you might find some information that's a little bit easier to work with when you go to the different table. Either way you do it, you get to the answer choice J for practice problem number 2. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 3. Number 3 says, in one of the crosses listed in Table 3 for each split, the offspring were split evenly between the two possible phenotypes. In this cross, the genotypes of the female parent and the male parent were respectively. First thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and extract the information that we're going to need here. First of all, we need to go to Table 3, and then we need to see which one says an even split between the two possible phenotypes. An even split means 50-50. So let's go to Table 3 and see which one is an even split between the phenotypes. Here's Table 3, and if you look here, here is the phenotype, and we need to find a 50-50 split. So look over here, 100, 100, 100, that's not that. 100 there, 100 there, that's not 50-50, nor is 75-25. 50-50 split here, 50-50 split here, 50-50 split here, evenly split. So we know that this is the correct area, and we need to find now, the question asks us about the genotype of the female parent and the genotype of the male parent. So here is the genotype here, and this is the information that we need. So when we scroll down to the answer choices, the correct answer here is going to be small a for the mother and a large A, small a for the father. So basically take this information here and find the answer choice that says exactly what you see below. So this information will be one of the answer choices. Find it in one of the answers. I am going to just scroll down there for you to see that once you take that information from above, the correct answer and the only one that's going to work is this one right here. It's basically answer choice C. So remember, here's the trick. Put this in your own words. The split even, that's a 50-50 split. 3, when you use this information here from Table 3, will only come up with answer choice C. Test 68A, science practice problem number 4. 4 says, based on the information presented, all of the offspring of cross 4 had yellow pods because each received what? First thing we need to do is we need to go up into the information and find cross 4 and see that indeed cross 4 produced yellow pods. Then we'll go ahead and look at the genotype and see which one of these statements is true. So we're really just going to basically check all of your answer choices. So let's go up and see where they talk about cross 4. Cross 4 comes from, here's the cross, here is 4, and this is the genotype right here, and this is information from table 3. Now what we need to do is, once again, here's what they tell us. It's 100% yellow pod. So let's go ahead and now take this information here and just spot check and see which one is true. Answer choice F says allele A from its female parent and allele A from its male parent. Large A from the female, small a from the male plant. Let's see if that is true for 4. When you scroll down here, it says A and small a and small a. Does that produce yellow? Not necessarily, because you don't know which. Maybe there is a combination that one allele capital came from the male and one from the female, so that doesn't give you that information as well. So that doesn't answer the question. Let's go ahead and take a look at G. G says allele B from the female and B, small b from the female. So far so good. And it says parent allele small b from the male. Let's see if the male has a small b in there as well. Yep, that's the answer. If you see, both the mother has and the father have small b, so that is what's going to produce the yellow color. Let's look at some of the other answer choices so you can kind of follow along with what I'm doing here. Answer choice H says allele small d from the female. So let's see, does the phenotype from 4 have that? Nope. You see right away there's a capital D in here, so that's out right away. And answer choice J says large E from the female. And you see that that's flat out wrong as well. There isn't even a large E in the cross for the mother, so that can be crossed out right away. Basically what you want to do is just go in and find cross 4 and then just start crossing answer choices out. The only one that's going to work is answer choice G, because it says allele small b for the female and allele small b for the male. And that's what you see in 4, because both of them have the small alleles. I'm going to explain some genetics here real quick. If you'd like to turn the video off, you can go ahead and do so. If not, this might be information for you for the future. Whenever you see a capital letter in one of the boxes here, this is going to represent what's called a dominant gene. If you see a small letter, that is going to represent what's called a recessive gene. A dominant gene is dominant over a recessive gene, because if you have a capital A and a small a, whatever the capital A is, the phenotype or the actual end result will be the dominant, what's the dominant gene. The phenotype is basically what's expressed. The genotype is the makeup. So remember, dominant and recessive, those are important. Capital and non-capital. Capital letters are going to be dominant, and those are the expressions that are going to be seen in the end result, whether it's a plant or whether it's an animal. This applies to all genetics, whether it's biology, dealing with animals or humans or even plants or something like that. So there you have it. The correct answer for this particular problem, once again, is going to be answer choice G. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 5. Number 5 says, in cross 3, what is the percent of the offspring that had a genotype of a capital B, capital B? First thing you want to do here is go up to table 3 and find cross 3. When we find cross 3, here is table 3. On the right side, here is the cross. And we scroll down to cross 3. We're looking for capital B, B. Here is B, large B, small b, and here is small b, small b. So wait, what? There is no double capital B. So if you look over here, this doesn't even apply. Look at your answer choices. Which genotype had a capital B, capital B? 0. Once again, because what we saw was the genotype BB mixed with BB. There is no double B here, so you know that the answer has to be 0%. This is just making sure you understand what the question is about and have some idea what the genotype versus the phenotype is up here. Remember, here is the information that we're asked. You just have to look. B, B, it's not a double capitalization B, so the answer is going to be 0. Answer choice A for number 5. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 6. Number 6 states, assume that a subject's attractiveness to mosquitoes depends on body temperature. Based on figure 4, the body temperature of which of the following group Z subjects with which treatment status was most attractive to mosquitoes? First thing we need to do is we need to go up to figure 4 and look at group Z. And then basically look at the columns and see which one is higher. We have subject 1 and subject 9 before and after. So let's scroll on up, take a look at figure 4, group Z. So here is figure 4. Make sure you go to the right one that they tell you to. Here is group Z. And now we're asked to compare 1, which is here, to 9. Now all we simply do is look at the columns. We have before treatment is black, that's 9 right here, which gives you 0.75. And then here is after the cure right here, which is 0.12 or something right here for 9. And you can see that before the treatment, the mosquitoes were really attracted to subject number 9. And then in 1, here is before the treatment, and we're at 0.2. After the cure, they're more attracted, 0.4. If you compare the two columns, the black column in 1 to the black column in 2, you see that the black column in 2 here is by far the strongest out of all of them. Subject 1 and 2, black, and uncolored, this is by far the largest one at 0.75 or so. So when we come down to the answer choices, we should be thinking subject 9 before the treatment, which is the black bar right here. Let's scroll back down to the answers. And you see the correct answer is indeed subject 9 before treatment, which is the black bar. Answer choice H for problem 6. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 7. Number 7 states, do the results of study 1 support the hypothesis that mosquitoes are more attracted to human subjects infected with gamocytes than to humans infected with sporocytes, or to uninfected human subjects? First things first, let's go ahead. It's a long answer choice here, question stem. Let's go ahead and put it in your own words. Study 1, does it support the hypothesis that mosquitoes are attracted to subjects infected with gamocytes? Yes or no? Let's go up, take a look at figure 3. In figure 3, you'll see that figure 3 is right here. We have group X, we have group Y, and we have group Z. Now, if you look at the definition of what that means, over here in table 1, we're kind of combining the results from two different columns. If you look here, X is defined as unaffected. So here is the Y-axis. It says the number of mosquitoes attracted to the subject. So here we are at 4.9 or something like that for X, which is unaffected. Y is the sporocytes present, and that is pretty much the same as X. And then we come over here to the bar graph and look at Z, and Z says gamocytes present. And you see that this bar is considerably higher at 10. So the results suggest that the mosquitoes are more attracted to group Z, which has gamocytes present. Let's go back to the question, read it one more time to make sure we understand what they're asking us. Do the results of study 1 support the hypothesis that mosquitoes are more attracted to human subjects infected with gamocytes? The answer is yes. We saw that with Z. So that means we can go ahead and start crossing some answer choices out. No is out and no is out. It's either A or B. Let's go ahead and take a look at the correct answer. It says yes. On average, more mosquitoes were attracted to the subject from, you saw it, the bar graph, group Z. That's the correct answer. Let's go ahead, jump on in and see why A is wrong. A says yes, on average, more mosquitoes were attracted to subjects from group X. You remember from the bar graph on the previous page that that is not a true statement. Here is X right here, and you see that bar graph Z, which is the gamocytes, is considerably higher over here, so that answer choice is false. The correct answer, therefore, for problem number 7 is answer choice B. Remember, sometimes you're going to have to combine information from several different graphs or charts. 7 is B. Test 68A, science practice problem number 8. Number 8 states, based on figure 4, how many of the subjects in group Z attracted a greater proportion of the responsive mosquitoes after their infections were cured than before the treatment? Now, let's go ahead and find figure 4. Figure 4 is down over here. And if you look at the key is always important. You want to make sure you understand what the key is giving you information in. We have two things here. We have a black colored bar and a non-shaded bar, which is clear. So if you come over here, you see that in this one here, this is before the treatment. In subject 9, the mosquitoes were really attracted to the subject. After this person was cured, you see that it fell down. They're asking you in the question, how many of the subjects had a higher bar after they were cured? Here is before, shaded, after, non-shaded. So we're looking for the white bar that's higher than the black bar based upon this. You see what I just did? I translated this into my own words. Here, no. Here, no. Here, no. Here, no. Here, you see that the white bar is higher than the black bar in subject 8. So that's 1. Here, the black bar is higher than the non-shaded, so that's out. That's out. This one, that's out. This one here, you see that the non-shaded, or after the cure, the mosquitoes are attracted more than before. So this one is in. Come over to subject 3, we see the same thing. The non-shaded is higher than the black bar. Non-shaded is after they're cured. Mosquitoes are really attracted to this subject after the cure than before. So we'll put a circle around that one as well. Here, no. And here we see the non-shaded region higher. The after is more attractive than before in this one, so we put a circle around that. Now we simply just count up our circles. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 subjects from group Z had mosquitoes that were more attracted to them after they were cured. The answer, therefore, will be answer choice G. The most important thing I can tell you here, kids, is this. Question stems that are longer than 2 lines long, you have to put in your own words, otherwise you don't know what you're doing. 8 is G. Test 68A, science practice problem number 9. Number 9 states, which of the following is the most likely reason that subjects infected with gametocytes were tested both before and after their infections were cured? So we want to know, why did they test them before and after? This is a basic science question. Remember, the setup for the whole program is this. You're going to have a tent, and inside the tent there is going to be a tube that's fed with mosquitoes, and the mosquitoes are going to go inside the tent and bite the person, the subject that's inside the tent. And they wanted to find out, are the mosquitoes attracted to the person if they have gametocytes in their blood already, or is it just because of some other reason? So what you want to do is you want to have what's called, 1, the experimental group. And the experimental group is the one that you're testing, so that would be the gametocytes. Now, you always have to have a base for the experimental group, which is called the control group. The control group is going to be the group that doesn't get anything exposed. So on this one, before they are treated, they have gammacytes. After you're cured, you do not. No gammacytes. So that would be the control group. Basic science setup. So you know the answer is going to be to see how this is all put together. If it is true that mosquitoes are attracted because there are gammacytes present. Let's go ahead, take a look at some of the answer choices here, starting with A. It says to determine whether the mosquitoes were attracted to the subjects because of the subject's infection. And remember, the infection here is the gammacytes. That is the correct answer. Because if you have a control group and an experimental group, then you can base your results from the experimental group off of the control group, which is just having regular circumstances. When you're treated and you're cured, you are just a regular person, uninfected with gammacytes. So that will lead us to the correct answer, answer choice A. Let's go ahead and take a look at B. B says to make sure that gammacytes were found in red blood cells in the subject. First of all, I don't remember anything about red blood cells. And if you're cured, you will not have gammacytes in your red blood cells, so that is just flat out wrong. Answer choice C says to determine how many gammacytes were present in the subject. How many? Well, if you're cured, guess what? You have 0. So that doesn't make any sense. Answer choice D says to make sure that the mosquitoes were not killed by the drugs used to treat malaria. That is totally off subject. Right away can be crossed out. The better answer choice is answer choice A because of the way science is set up. Remember, all science experiments, you will have a control group, and that will basically just give you normal environments, and you have an experimental group which is testing the new drug or the new hypothesis. Experimental group versus control group 9 is A. 68A, science, practice problem number 10. Number 10 says, in studies 1 and 2, which group, X or Y, more likely served as the standard comparison, allowing the researchers to compare the results for group Z from study 1 to the group Z in study 2. First thing you want to do here is, if you're like me, you read this and now you said to yourself something about study 1 and 2 and groups X, Y, and Z in comparing. And now we need to put this in our own words to make sure you understand this. ACT will give you a long question stem. Anything in general over 2 lines long is going to have to be reworded in your own words to make sure you understand it. This is a trap on the test, so take the time to reword the question or you will get it wrong. Here's what it says. We have group X and we have group Y. Which one served as the standard for comparison? In science terminology, this is what we see. Every science passage, every science project, every study done, you will have a theory or a hypothesis that you are going to need to test. And you will test it with an experimental group. Then, to compare, to make sure that this isn't just something you made up, you have to compare it to what's called a control group, which is a group subjected to normal situations. let's do a mini experiment. I believe that kids that eat Starburst before they take their ACT, Starburst candy, score higher than kids that don't. So the first thing that I want to do is just get a random group of kids to take the test. I get the results, and now I get a random group of kids again, and I feed them Starburst, which is my experimental factor, my hypothesis, and then I compare the results to the control group. So, look at this. Is the control group the same, or are they switching something different? Is it X or Y that's the control group? See what I just did? I totally reworded this into my own language. I go back up, take a look at the first page. I look at table number 1 in study 1, and this is what it says. X is unaffected, and Y is sporocytes, and Z is gammacytes. When I come back over to study 2, it says the procedure from study 1 was repeated with X group subjects and the cured subjects from group Y and Z. So now we have X is unaffected and X is still repeated using the X subjects. Y, it says, in study 1 was sporocytes present, but now they're saying that in study 2, the Y group was cured. So between the two, the control group is the one that is just a standard without any situations changing. That is the X group. The X is going to be the same in both of them and therefore considered the control group. When you look up here, we know that we can start crossing answer choices out right away because we are looking for the control group. That means Y can be crossed out right away. And we knew that the Y groups are different. So over here it says the infection status of the Y group was the same. You know that that's out because it didn't change. They changed it from, they cured those Y subjects. We just read that a second ago. Answer choice F and G are the two left. We'll look at F. It says the X group because the infected status of the group was different in study 1. Well, they said that they used the exact same thing, so that is wrong. Answer choice G, better. It says group X because the infected status of group X stayed the same. Let's go back up there and look at it one more time. 10 is going to be G because here the X group is unaffected, and here in study 2 the procedure for study 1 was repeated with the X group subjects. It's the same. They stay the same. The correct answer for this problem 10 is going to be G. You're going to have to look around a little bit and keep in mind that you're going to have to remember control group and experimental group as well. 10G. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 11. 11 says, which of the following procedures was most likely employed to ensure that the mosquitoes were attracted to a specific subject rather than to a specific tent? First thing we want to do here is go back up into the setup of the experiment so you can kind of see what they did. Here is what they did back up at the very top. It says, in the first trial, 100 unaffected mosquitoes were released into the chamber. 30 minutes later, the number of mosquitoes attracted to each subject was determined. The procedure was repeated in 11 more trials until all subjects had been tested. Then, for each group, the average number of mosquitoes attracted to a subject was calculated. All the infected subjects were then retested to cure. Alright, so the first thing that we want to do here when we look at this particular problem is we want to make sure that the mosquitoes are attracted to the subject and not to the tent. So what do we need to do? We need to make sure that we release mosquitoes at random. We don't keep the same mosquitoes in the same tent, because the same mosquitoes in the same tent, having the same people come in, maybe the mosquito had already landed on one of those people and smelled its own scent. So what you want to do is you want to just randomize this as much as you can. The first thing we can do is we can start crossing stuff out that just doesn't make any sense. If you look at answer choice D, it says assign the gamma site subjects to the same tent in each trial. Well, remember, whenever you do science, you always want to have something random. Random subjects, a random population, random. So assigning all the people with gamma sites to the same tent, it goes against rule number 1 in experiments in science. Remember, we're looking for random populations, not a specific population or anything. This would be a specific population and therefore would taint the results. D is out. Let's take a look at answer choice B. It says release a different number of mosquitoes into each tent at each trial. Well, you remember that we saw that from the very beginning up here. It said that they released 100 unaffected mosquitoes were released, and then 30 minutes later it was repeated with another 100, 11 more trials. So that keeps everything the same, and that's standardizing your experiment. So we know that answer choice B, you would never want to release a different number because that's going to taint your results. And here, this is not random, so both of those could be crossed out immediately. We're left with A and C. A says releasing the same number of mosquitoes into each tent in each trial. Well, we already have that in the setup. So that's just redundant, and that's just flat out something you do in science anyways. We want to know, how did they ensure that the mosquitoes are attracted to the subjects as opposed to the tent? Why not just randomly put mosquitoes in different tents and randomly have each person go into different tents instead of saying all of the subjects, these 5 subjects only use tent 1. It's random, random, random. And we saw that theme come across here, that random theme in answer choice D, and it reappears here because answer choice C says assign subjects to tents in random manner in each trial. That's the correct answer, and this is something that's already repeated in the setup. It is true, but it doesn't answer the question. The question wants to know, how did they make sure that they went for specific subjects as opposed to the tent? Random. C, from practice problem number 11, it's basic science concept. Test 68A, science practice problem number 12. Number 12 says, based on scientist 1's discussion, petroleum deposits would most likely be found at or near locations where. First things first, it is a specific question dealing with scientist 1, so you know that the wrong answer choices, maybe 1 or 2 of them, might be something that came from scientist 2. So if you look down over here in scientist 2, an overview of Scientist 2, basically Scientist 2 says this, that there are these deep fractures in the Earth's crust, and that oil is constantly forming from depths greater than 100 kilometers below the surface. It's pretty deep. 100 kilometers is 62 miles. So, and it's constantly forming, and there's an unlimited supply. So deep fractures in the Earth's crust, if you look up here, Scientist 1 says that this is a long period of time. It's 10 kilometers, and it's raw materials, which are fossils from marine organisms, and it's a limited supply because it's old. So if you look at the answer choices right away, we can start crossing some stuff off. Wires crossed means something outside of Scientist 1. Remember, deep fractures in the Earth's crust. When there's a fracture in the Earth's crust, what is going to happen here is plates will probably move apart. So that is called a wires crossed answer choice and can be crossed out right away, because that doesn't say anything from Scientist 1. That is coming from Scientist 2. Plate tectonics beginning to collide and moving apart. That's shifting around. A little bit off topic, but still it feels like something from Scientist 2, because Scientist 1 never said anything about that. And answer choice H says an ocean recently formed. If you look over here in Scientist 1, does it say recently formed? It says there is a limited supply, and a fossil is something that's really old, and it says provided the raw material for the Earth's crust, a limited supply. So this isn't new, because this feels like it's like ancient. Fossil is old, and new would come from down here. It says constantly forming. So if something's constantly forming, you might have something that would be fairly new. So I kind of feel like that one is wires crossed as well. We can go ahead and cross it out. We're left with answer choice J, which says an ocean had existed at some time in the past. Well, what is the raw material of petroleum according to Scientist 1? Raw material right here says it is fossils of marine organisms. So if there's marine organisms and they're fossils, that means a long time ago there must have been some type of an ocean there. So that would be the correct answer, and it is located in Scientist 1. Remember, if you're asked about Scientist 1, chances are they're going to give you some stuff, wires crossed, from Scientist 2. 12, once again, is J. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 13. Number 13 says, several petroleum deposits have been found at a depth of 5 kilometers below Earth's surface. Is this information consistent with viewpoint of Scientist 1? First of all, Scientist 1 is right here. We need to go in and see what they say about depth. Here it says 5 kilometers. When we go down here, the number that pops off our page, off the page here, is the number 10. Beneath the ocean floor at depths of less than 10 kilometers below the surface, heat and pressure serve to change the remains into petroleum. So the answer right away from Scientist 1, paragraph 1, is going to be yes. We can go ahead and cross out answer choices to say no, because it is consistent. Remember, 10 kilometers, it says less. So now we're left with answer choice A and B. A says yes, because Scientist 1 indicated that petroleum deposits existed at depths greater than 100 kilometers. Well, right away, that is false, because it doesn't say that right there. It says 10 kilometers. So we can cross A out. B is the correct answer, and it says yes because scientists indicated that petroleum deposits existed at depths less than 10 kilometers. It's from right here. Just simply go in there, find it, reword the answer into B, 13B. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem, number 14. Number 14 says, which scientist indicates that petroleum is formed in higher pressure environment? First things first, since we are doing a conflicting viewpoints passage, it looks a lot like something we've seen in section 3, the reading section. Lots of writing. And remember, they're picking a main subject to debate. Scientist 1 and Scientist 2 are discussing different theories about the same subject. Here, we're asked to find which scientist believes higher pressure environments are the ones that produces petroleum. This is a lot like a mystery question, so let's go ahead and use the mystery technique from the reading. Mystery question, the first thing you do once you label it as mystery, we need to locate the keyword higher. Then, we're going to finger scan for that word. In this case, higher pressure might be kind of hard for us to go ahead and say each time we pass our finger over the line of words. So let's break it down and just say the word pressure. Once we find the word pressure in the passage, spot check to make sure we're talking about the right kind of pressure. Let's go back into a quick overview of finger scanning. This finger scanning, start at the top, upper left. Drag your finger across the line of words as you say the keyword we've selected, pressure. Then go down a line and go backwards and say the word again. Pressure. Pressure, 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 pressure. Top to bottom, left to right, forward, backwards until you locate the word pressure. Here we find the word pressure in Scientist 1 on the first paragraph towards the bottom. And here's what it says. Beneath the ocean floor at depths of less than 10 kilometers below the Earth's surface, heat and pressure over millions of years change to petroleum. So, we see the word pressure, but it says less than 10 kilometers. I remember from some of the other questions that Scientist 2 talked about something deeper than 10. And a basic science concept says the deeper you go, the greater the pressure. So let's keep going. Maybe there's another area that says the word pressure. Then we can spot check. Keep going. Pressure, 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 pressure. We finally get into Scientist 2, and Scientist 2 in paragraph 1 at the bottom, it says pressure again as well. And it says here, those simple hydrocarbons then combine under pressure to produce petroleum. Now we're in a position where both Scientist 1 and 2 both talk about pressure producing petroleum. Let's use some kid logic. Scientist 1 said pressure at less than 10 kilometers, and Scientist 2 says pressure of 100 to 200 kilometers. Well, which one would produce more pressure? The deeper you go, the more pressure there is. Just like scuba diving. If you dive into the deep end of the pool, your ears pop. So we know that the answer is going to come from Scientist 2. That means we can go back to the question and cross out anything that says Scientist 1 because that is from the wrong area. F says Scientist 1 can be crossed out. G, Scientist 1 crossed out. Now, remember, Scientist 2 says 200 kilometers, and Scientist 1 said less than 10 kilometers. We'll look at both of these answer choices. They both talk about Scientist 2. Let's start with H. H says because scientist states that petroleum is formed at depths of less than 10 kilometers. Well, that's wrong because that is what's called a wires crossed answer choice. Less than 10 comes from Scientist 1. So we know that that answer choice is wrong. H, wrong, wires crossed. J says Scientist 2 because the scientist states that petroleum is formed at depths greater than 100 kilometers, and that's what you see over here, 100 to 200 kilometers. Where? Scientist 2, J is the correct answer. Remember, when you're doing a passage like this that's called conflicting viewpoints, there will be only one. There will be 7 questions. It's a lot of reading. So use the mystery technique, pick your keyword, find the right area, and reword it into the answer choice. 14 is J. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 15. Number 15 says, an experiment demonstrated that petroleum can be formed through a reaction of carbon dioxide and water. Which scientist would most likely use this demonstration to support his or her viewpoint? First thing I did here was I said, the passage that we're doing is called a conflicting viewpoints passage. It's a lot of reading. You're given one subject about the formation of petroleum, and 2 scientists give 2 different theories. So, since it's a lot of reading, we can use some of the techniques from the reading section. In particular, we can use the mystery technique. In this particular question, I labeled it as a mystery question. Then I picked the keyword carbon dioxide. Instead of reading, I went and finger scanned for the word carbon all the way up at the back front passage, Scientist 1. I took my finger at the top left, dragged it across the line of words, and said our secret word, carbon. Then I went down the line, carbon, 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 carbon. Carbon, 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 carbon. I kept going until I came across the word carbon, and that word was found in Scientist 2. It says organic carbon compounds to form simple hydrocarbons such as methane. So we know that Scientist 2 is going to be the one that will support this. So we could go ahead and start crossing out answer choices. Anything to do with Scientist 1 is flat out wrong. A, Scientist 1, B, Scientist 1. Now we simply have to read this area and look for the one that gives the better answer choice. C says Scientist 2 because it would demonstrate how marine organisms can be changed into petroleum. Here they say Scientist 2 talks about marine organisms. Well, wait a second. Marine organisms, I thought that came from Scientist 1. Fossils of marine organisms provide the raw material for petroleum. So that is what's called a wires crossed. They're getting their wires crossed because Scientist 2 never said anything about marine organisms. C can be crossed out because that is called a wires crossed answer choice. We're left with the answer choice D, and D says Scientist 2 because it would demonstrate how simple carbon compounds can be changed into petroleum. It says it right here. Those hydrocarbons can combine under pressure to produce petroleum. Key for 15, label it mystery, finger scan for your keyword carbon or carbon dioxide, find it, reword it into the answer, and be aware of wires crossed answer choices that give you information from the other scientist. Once you found for sure it's Scientist 2, look out for stuff that's given from Scientist 1. 15 is D. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 16. Number 16 says, which of the following diagrams is most consistent with Scientist 2's description of the formation and migration of petroleum? First thing we need to do is jump on in and take a look at Scientist 2. The topic sentence of Scientist 2 says, all of the Earth's petroleum is formed from a single inorganic compound at depths of 100 to 200 kilometers. Right away, we know that the diagram has to have the formation being at 100 to 200. So when we look at answer choice H, we see that the diagram shows 10 kilometers. We know that 10 kilometers is from Scientist 1 and therefore can be crossed out and known as a wires crossed example. Let's go back up and continue reading. It says petroleum formation is constantly occurring. Well, you know that this is constantly occurring, which means that there is going to be an unlimited supply. That is different, and that is the main subject sticky point between 1 and 2. Because Scientist 1 said that there's a limited supply because fossils of marine organisms provide the raw material for petroleum. Since it's fossils that produce petroleum, we have a limited supply. Let's go back down to the answer choices and take a look at it further. Remember, I assume right away when they ask me about Scientist 2, I assume that the wrong answer choices they present me are going to be information from Scientist 1. So you see how I went back in sneakily and went and reread some of the information from Scientist 1. If you look at some of the other answer choices here, let's go back and look at answer choice J. J says this, Earth's surface, we're starting at the migration here, down, that looks about right. Remember, we start for Scientist 2 down here, but wait, it says deposits. No, a deposit means it's an unlimited, it's a limited supply, so that will not work. J can be crossed out because a deposit is like something from the marine fossil. So that would be wrong because that presents information from Scientist 1. We crossed out J, we crossed out H, now we're left with answer choice G and answer choice F. F says formation at 100 to 200, and G says deposits at 100 to 200. Remember, it says in Scientist 2, it forms at 200. Scientist 1 says fossil deposits at 100 to 2. So you can see that this is a wires crossed answer choice as well. G can be crossed out. The only answer that's going to work here is answer choice F. Formation at 100 to 200, then it migrates up towards the surface. F for 16. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 17. Number 17 says, based on scientists' discussion, which of the following statements best describes the two physical properties of petroleum that are most important in facilitating its movement from location at where it forms to the location where it accumulates in large deposits? Petroleum is a blank. Then we look over here and we see, is it a fluid or is it a solid? Right away, we're going to do two things here. If you look up here in Scientist number 1, Scientist number 1 talks about the formation of petroleum here, and then it says after forming, the petroleum migrates upward towards the depth where it accumulates at specific locations under the Earth's crust. It migrates. Okay, so we'll look at Scientist 2, and Scientist 2 says After forming, the petroleum migrates upwards to a much shallower depth and deposits at specific locations. So first of all, it migrates. What's another word for migrating? Which one would be easier for the petroleum to migrate based upon your genius common sense? Is a liquid easier to migrate, or is a solid? Well, right away you know it's going to be a liquid or a fluid. So we can go ahead and cross out answer choice C and D, because C and D both say solid. It's going to be pretty hard for a solid to migrate from deep in the earth up to the surface of the crust. Both of them say it migrates. So right away C and D are out. Now A says fluid that is more dense than material that it moves through, and B says less dense. Well, let's do a quick science experiment using our genius brains here. I am going to make Kool-Aid, and I am going to add a bunch of sugar to the Kool-Aid. I take the sugar and put it in the glass of Kool-Aid and start to stir. But I like it real sweet. So what happens to the excess sugar that is not dissolved in the water? Well, of course, it seeps down to the bottom. So which one is heavier? Is the sugar molecules or the sugar grains heavier than the water? Is it more dense than the water, or is it less dense? Experiment 1. Experiment 2, I have water and then I mix a tablespoon of olive oil in the water. What happens to the oil? The oil will float to the surface. The sugar will float to the bottom. So that tells us right away things that are less dense float to the surface. Things that are more dense float to the bottom. That gives us our answer. Petroleum is going to float to the surface because it is less dense than the material below, and that will give us answer choice B. 17, using a little bit of common sense and kid logic, derives the answer that's correct, B. 68A, science practice problem number 18. Number 18 says, based on scientist 2, his discussion of which of the following compounds is involved in the formation of petroleum. Let's go back up to scientist 2 and see which one. We preview the answers. It looks like there is some chemical stuff going on here. So let's go back up in there and see what he says about chemistry. Scientist 2, as we come in here and kind of quickly read through this, it says water reacts with simple inorganic carbon compounds to form a simple hydrocarbon such as methane. Those hydrocarbons then combines to produce petroleum. So when you look at your answer choices here, we're looking for an answer choice that's going to say something about hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon we found on line 6. Simply look at your answer choices. Hydrocarbon is represented by an H, hydrogen. Look here, 3 does not have an H in it, NaCl, out. Number 2, N2, that is out. There's no H or hydrogen in there. If you look at answer choice problem 1, CH4, that is a hydrocarbon, and you can connect the dots between H here and H here, hydrogen, hydrogen. It's the only one that's got the hydrogen molecule in there, and therefore 1 is the only one, so that means F is going to have to be the correct answer for 18. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 19. Number 19 says, according to Figure 2, during reaction 2 without a magnetic field, the percent PM at 10 minutes was approximately what? First thing we need to do is, for 19, find Figure 2. That's right here. Second thing we need to do, reaction 2, spot check. We are in reaction 2 right here with this chart, right on. The third thing we need to do is we need to find something without a magnetic field at 10 minutes. So if you look at the x-axis here, here's the minutes. Find 10 right here. And we need to go up and see which one of these lines crosses without a magnetic field. Here it says this solid line is with a magnetic field. We're looking for the one that does not have a magnetic field. That's this dotted line here. So basically what we want to do, according to the question, find 10 minutes, go up, 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 until you see where 10 minutes hits for the dotted line. And that puts you probably right about there. And now you look over to the left and see that we're right around 43, 44. Go over to the answer choices. The correct answer will be right there, C, 45. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 20. Number 20 says, suppose that during reaction 2 without a magnetic field, the magnetic field had been removed at 10 minutes. 5 minutes later, at 15 minutes, the percent PM would most nearly be what? First of all, we're going to go ahead and find reaction 2. That is here in Figure 2. Reaction 2 right here. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to look for the line with a magnetic field. So here is with a magnetic field right here. That is the solid line. And now we are going to find 10 minutes. 10 minutes is here. The next thing we're going to do is read the second part here. It says, 5 minutes later, if this magnetic field had been removed. So now, at 10 minutes, if the magnetic field was removed, you would now have the without magnetic field. So just at 10 minutes, with magnetic field would be here, without would be here. 10 minutes plus 5 minutes later, which is 15 minutes later, we're right here. What happens to the line that does not have a magnetic field? Find here, we go up, we see that here is with a magnetic field right around 30, and here is without a magnetic field about 65. So the area that's going to be in between here and here will be our answer. Let's look for an answer choice that says the same thing as what we see in the chart. F says less than 30%. Here is your percent PM. Less than 30% would be down here. We're looking for the space in between magnetic field and no magnetic field. So that will be crossed out. G says between 30 and 60%. 30 to 64 or 63. That works. Answer choice H says between 60 and 90. That's too high. That would be up here. That can be crossed out. And G says greater than 90, which would be up here. There's nothing up there. The closest answer choice to what we see is answer choice G, 30% to 60%. Right here. It's as easy as that. Take the information from the question stem, plug it in here with a magnetic field, and then without. G is the correct answer for 20. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 21. Number 21 reads, according to figure 3, in reaction 3, how did the addition of the magnetic field affect the yield of Fe metal? At 20 minutes, the yield obtained with the magnetic field was about what? First thing we need to do is find figure 3, reaction 3, and then we're going to compare magnetic field with non-magnetic field. So that will tell us the difference between those. So let's go scroll back up to figure 3. Figure 3 is right here. At 20 minutes is right here. And we see that our line would be right here. Let's go ahead and get the pen out. 20 minutes is here. With the magnetic, without a magnetic field, we are up the line here. That's where we cross at 50. And now what happens when we put a magnetic field on there? Well, you see it jumps all the way up here. So it goes to 100, 50 to 100. So when you add a magnetic field, it's 2 times greater than without. Simply look for an answer choice that says the same thing as what we see in figure 3. The correct answer will be answer choice G, D. It jumps out right at us. 2 times the yield obtained without a magnetic field. Remember, make sure that you translate this question stem into something that makes sense for you. Once again, if you see a question stem that's got longer than 2 lines long, make sure you translate it in your own words here. And here's what they're saying. Make sure you understand this. D, 21. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 22. Number 22 reads, a chemist claimed that the conversion of a metal oxide to a pure metal using H2 gas will always occur faster with a magnetic field than without a magnetic field. Do the figures confirm this? So the first thing that we want to do is let's go up and take a look and see, is it always produce something faster with a magnetic field? We're going to have to scroll back up and look at figures 1 through 3. So when we go back up here, let's take a look at figure 1 with a magnetic field right here. It does look like, here's the time and here's the percent. It looks like the solid line here is faster than the dotted line. So the answer for figure 1 is yes. The results confirm that that is true. Now let's go ahead and take a look at reaction 2 in figure 2. Here's the time again, the percent PM, and now here is with the magnetic field and here is without. These are inverted. This is slower than without the magnetic field. So in figure 2, the answer is no. That doesn't always work. With a magnetic field, doesn't always speed that up according to what we see in figure 2. So we know that our answer is going to be no. Scroll down and we can start crossing answer choices out. Answer choice F says yes. We can cross that out because of figure 2. G says yes. We can cross that out because of figure 2. Now let's analyze H and J. Here's what H says. No, the PM reaction reaches 0 sooner with a magnetic field than it did without a magnetic field. It reaches 0. Let's go back in there and see if that's true. We'll look again at figure 2 and see where are we trying to reach. The percent of 0 is here, And no, that doesn't make sense over here because we're going from 0 to 100. So they've got that flipped around. The correct answer should say something about without a magnetic field, the PM hits 100% sooner than it does with a magnetic field. Scroll on down. And take a look at J. It says no, the percent PM reached 100 sooner without the magnetic field than it did with the magnetic field in reaction to. Let's spot check. That's the correct answer. And you saw, here it is again. Without a magnetic field, it's the dotted line. This line goes from 0 to 100 sooner than it does with a magnetic field in figure 2, which is reaction to. The correct answer, therefore, is going to only be answer choice J for 22. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 23. Number 23 is by far the most challenging problem on this section, so bear with me with the explanations. Here's what 23 states. Suppose that figure 1 had instead been plotted as a percent of metal oxide, percent MO versus time. Here is the new information, percent of the metal oxide and mass of the metal oxide divided by the mass of the metal oxide plus the mass of the metal times 100. So we'll go over now. We need to take a look at figure 1, what the original experiment setup was. In the original experiment setup, we see we have the percent mass of the metal divided by the mass of the metal oxide plus the mass of the metal times 100. If you look over here, let's see if I can explain this in easy terms. Here's what's happening. As we increase the x-axis here in time from 0 to 20, it looks like the percent of the metal increases. And that means the metal oxide decreases. So that tells us here, at this time period right here, we have a little bit of metal, but a lot of the metal oxide, which is the junk, the byproduct. So if we take, and this is the formula that we were looking for, the percent of the metal. If we take this now and we are looking only for the metal oxide, we know that as we go through reaction 1, the metal oxide, as the percent of the metal goes up, the percent of the metal oxide is going down in this regular reaction. If we flip-flop this with the new information, we want to know now about the percent of the metal oxide. So we already know how this turns out. As you increase the percent of the percent of the metal oxide will go down. So we're going to have to find a graph that is exactly opposite of figure 1. That means we're going to have a graph that's going from 100% down, going this way, kind of like a regular a ski jump or a hill or something. When you come over here and look at the graphs below, you see in 23, answer choice A is like that little sledding hill or the ski jump. We have the mass of the metal oxide. Remember at what we saw when we had the mass of the metal, as we increased the time, the metal went up. So now we have a lot of oxide, metal oxide, and as we increase the time, it's decreasing. So we basically just flip those around. That's the answer that we're looking for. A is the correct answer. right away, let's get in there and start crossing some stuff out. C is violated because it looks like the metal oxide percent is going up. Well, you can't have metal oxide going up as well as the percent of the metal going up. As one increases, the other one would have to decrease. So this is flat out wrong. This is more of a chart for the percent of the metal, PM, where the percent of the oxide or the excess stuff, the leftover, think of it that way, is going to be going down. So C can be crossed out as well as D for that same exact reason. Now, B is going in the right direction, but let's look at figure 1 one more time. Here is the dotted line, which is the without the magnetic field. Without the magnetic field, you see how we reach 20 minutes, and here with the magnetic field hits 10. So let's go ahead and see what we see up here in figure 1, because we want to basically do the exact opposite of figure 1. If you see over here, we go from 0 all the way to 20 minutes. So it's the dotted line without magnetic field that is going to be the one that we're going to just basically flip upside down. That will be the chart that we're looking for. The only answer that comes to mind when we do that is answer choice A. You see how here is the dotted line without the magnetic field that goes from 100 all the way down to 20 minutes. A is the correct answer. If you're confused about this, think of it this way. We have metal and we have metal oxide. The metal oxide is excess. So you see from here in figure 1 that as we increase the amount of metal, the oxide is going to go down. It's an indirect relationship where the arrows are going opposite. So if we change this to now the metal oxide, it will basically be doing the exact same thing. As the metal oxide decreases, the metal would be increasing. So the correct answer on this one, once again, hopefully that didn't confuse you, is going to be answer choice A. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 24. Number 24 reads, a photon to free an electron from Ca, the photon's frequency must be at least what? First thing we need to do is, this is a data analysis passage. We need to go in and find what the frequency is for releasing an electron. We can go back up here and find that. It says here, equal or exceed the threshold frequency, Ft. So we did that. The second thing is, once you understand what Ft is, we come down over here and take a look at table 1. You see here is the Ft, the amount of energy to free an electron, and then here is the metal. So we came up here, we found the definition of frequency, the threshold frequency. Then we're going to simply look for Ca and then look to the right. You see that the amount of energy we need is 6.5 times 10 to the 14th hertz. So when we come down to our answer choice, we should find an answer that says the exact same thing as that, and that falls in our lap as being answer choice H for 24. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 25. Number 25 states, based on Figure 1, which of the following correctly ranks CA, MG, PT in order of increasing Kmax at F equals 16.0 times 10 to the 14th hertz? First thing we want to do here is go to Figure 1 and look at the graph. Here is Figure 1. The second thing we want to do is look at where F 16 times 10 to the 14th hertz is. That is in the x-axis here. And we find 16 right here. And then look basically straight up the line and look at your values here. It looks like we have PT, HG, MG, and CA. Let's go ahead and start crossing answer choices out to find the correct answer. So the first one we have here is PT. So we know that these two can be crossed out right away. PT is the first one. The second one we see is HG, but neither B or A have HG, so we can go to the next one, which is MG. And MG we see in answer choice A, and then just spot check our work. CA is the next one, and that will lead us to the correct answer of A for 25. It's just making sure you take the information from the question and plug it back in to your chart or your graph. 25A. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 26. Number 26 states, based on Table 1 and Figure 2, the threshold energy E sub T for Hg is closest to which of the following? First of all, we're looking for Hg. Let's go ahead and find what the value is in Table 1. We'll scroll on up to Table 1, and in Table 1 you see that Hg will equal a value of 10.9 times 10 to the 14th hertz. Now we're going to take 10.9 and we are going to plug that into Figure 2, which is right here. So we basically find 10.9, let's just call it 11. It is right here. And then let's go up until we see where the line crosses right here. And then see where that is. We'll go right across to the left, and it looks like we're about 7 or 7.2. Let's scroll on down and look for the answer choices here. And remember, it's about 7.2 times 10 to the negative 19th joules. So you look for our answer choices here. The answer choice that jumps off the page is answer choice H, 7 times 10 to the 9th negative 19th joules. It's basically combining results from Table 1, find out what the value is for Hg, and then plug that value into Figure 2 for the answer of H. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 27. Problem 27 says, based on Figure 1, for the electrons ejected from PT by photons having an F28 times 10 to the 14th hertz, Kmax would be what value? First thing we want to do here is, remember, we're looking for this F value here, which is 10 to the 14th hertz. So let's go ahead and look at figure 1. When we go up to figure 1, spot check our work. Here's figure 1, and here is our 10 to the 14th hertz. Now we're looking for the value of PT at F28. So if you come up here, you see that our PT value here, here's our PT going from here all the way up, and we'll notice that our F times 10 to the 14th hertz, we want a new value of 28. Well, here we are at 22, so if we came over here and went up, you would see that our value would probably be right about here or so. It's a little low. Probably about right here. So you know it's going to be above 6.0. Let's look for an answer choice that says above 6.0 times 10 to the 19th joules. I'm thinking right off the top of my head something like 7.5, just by looking and guesstimating. We come down to the answer choices, you see that the answer here is D, because the only one that says greater than 7.0, and we guesstimated our answer choice at being like 7.5. Let's go ahead and cross out the answer choices for sure so you can see why they're wrong. Answer choice A says less than 1. Well, that isn't even on the charts. If you come back over here and see where that PT value starts, you see that that is just flat out wrong. Here is where the PT value is here, and the lowest possible value of PT would be 13. See that? So 1 is over here. That doesn't have anything to do with this line here. Remember, here is what we found in table 1 for PT. So anything that's below 13 isn't even the right element. So right away we can go ahead and cross out answer choice A, which says less than 1. B says between 1 and 4. Well, that still is a different element. That's out. And C says between 4 and 7. Well, that's true, but remember our new value is F28, and the only one for F28 is going to be above 7.0. Remember, just think of carrying this out here all the way to 28 and then going all the way up to the top. You will see that when you do that, it's definitely going to be above 6.0. So we guesstimated about 7.5 or something like that. The correct answer, therefore, will only be answer choice D for problem number 27. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 28. Number 28 reads, photons having an F equals 11.8 times 10 to the 14th hertz, and photons having an F equals 13.3 times 10 to the 14th hertz are shown separately upon a new metal, metal X, resulting in ejected electrons with the following Kmax values. We see that here is the F value and here's the Kmax. The new F value, 11.8, produces a 2.5 Kmax, and a different F value gives us 13.3 with a Kmax value of 3.5. Here's the question. Based on figure 1 and table 1, what is the frequency threshold, Ft, of metal X is closest to which of the following? Here's the first thing that we want to do. We want to go ahead and take these numbers, throw them into figure 1, and see which metals are closest. Let's scroll on up to figure 1, And the first one we have is 11.3. Here is the F value. We take 11.3 and put it on the X axis. 10, 12, 11.3 is probably right about here. Let's go on up to see about what that would give us. That would give us 2.5, would put us right here, which is smack dab in the middle between CA and MG. Now, let's go back and take the second value from the little table. The table value here is 13.3, and that gives us 3.5. Let's see if that confirms what we've seen before. Here is 13, and we'll go on up to 3.5, which will put us smack dab in the middle between CA and MG again. So we know that our frequency threshold when we go to table 1, here is our FT value, is going to be between CA and MG, 6.55 and 8.84. There's roughly 2.5 points in between. So let's go ahead and just divide 2.5 by 2, which will give us about 1.25. We can go ahead and subtract 1.25 off of 8, which will give us like 7.8, 7.9. And this one would give us the same thing. We're shooting like 7.8, 7.9, 80 is what we basically roughly guesstimated here. Remember, the difference between these two numbers is 2.5 divided by 2. We want to find the number that falls right directly in the middle of 6.55 and 8.84, and that number should technically be right around 7.8, 7.9. That's the number that we previewed for our new frequency threshold number for metal X. When we scroll on down, we're looking for a number that's right around 7.8. G is the only one that's close to that, pretty darn close for a guesstimation, 8.0 times 10 to the 14th. Remember, combined results in data analysis for ACT science. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 29. Number 29 says, in experiment 2, from trial to trial, as the volume of NO was increased, the volume of NO2 produced what? Let's go ahead and find experiment 2. Experiment 2 is right here, so we're going to need to look at table 2. And now let's go ahead and find NO, which is this column here, and we go from 4 to 8, and then we want to look for the NO2 produced, which will be over here. We go from 4 to 8. So it looks like we increase. Then when we go from 8 to 16, what happens over here? We remain the same. Now we go from 16 to 32. We're increasing here. We're still staying the same here. So we go increase, 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 increase. These two columns. And then we level off as we increase NO. The NO2 remains the same. Let's look for an answer choice that says the same thing as that. You see C jumps off the page. It increased, then remained constant. Because from 8 to 32, we increased the NO, but the NO2 value stayed the same, so that's the same thing as remaining constant. 29, the correct answer will be answer choice C. 68A, science practice problem number 30. Number 30 says, in which of the trials of experiments 1 and 2 were all of the gases in the syringes completely converted to NO2? So first thing we want to do is let's go back up and take a look at experiment 1, and that will be from table 1. So here is the final volume. This is an important column, and then we want to go ahead and make sure that these choices here will match the total amount of gas. So the first thing here is this. We have a final volume of 30, and we have NO2 gas of 20. So that doesn't correlate to the correct answer, because remember, in this question we're asked about which one of these is all of the gases converted into NO2. So we see that we have the final volume of 30 and we have the NO2 volume as 20. So that does not work. We'll go to the next one and just simply check. Final volume is 40 milliliters and the NO2 volume of the gas is 40. Then these two gases are 0. 40 and 40. Trial 2 is in there so far. Trial 3, 50 for the final volume, and you look over here, the NO2 value is 20. That will not work and it can be crossed out. Trial 4, the final volume is 30 and the NO2 value is 20. So far in table 1, experiment 1, the only one that we found that does work is trial number 2. Let's scroll on down and take a look at experiment 2, which will come from table 2. We look again at the same thing. The final volume, it's this column here, and then we're looking for the NO volume over here. Here is the final volume, 22. Is that completely converted? No, it isn't. It's 4, that's out. 24, 8, that's out. 32, 8, that's out. 48, 8, that's out. The only answer that works according to what the question is asking you is trial number 2, which is answer choice G. Remember, make sure you understand what they're asking you to do here. Which of the trials in experiment 1 and 2 did all of the gases in the syringe completely convert to NO2? Trial 2, one more time, look at that. You'll see we converted the full volume in trial 2. The full volume here of the gas is 40, and that is completely with NO2. That is the correct answer. Answer choice G for problem 30. Test 68A, science practice problem number 31. Number 31 states, the reactant that is used up first in the reaction is called the limiting reagent. What is the limiting reagent of trial 1? We're looking for one of these answer choices that has a value of 0 because it will be all used up. Let's go back to experiment 1, trial 1, and look and see which one of those has a value of 0 in trial 1. Here we are in table 1, experiment 1, trial 1. After the reaction, here is the final volume, the volume of these, and here is the final contents here. It looks like the one that has a 0 that's used up here in trial 1 is NO. The correct answer therefore should fall in our lap. It's a matter of just going to the right area and looking at trial 1, and you see that the correct answer for 31 falls in our lap. It's answer choice A, NO. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 32. Number 32 states, based on experiment 1, the balanced chemical equation for the reaction of NO and NO2 from NO2 is which one? Remember, a balanced equation means what's on the left, when you calculate it out, will have to equal what's on the right. So if you look over here, we have 1 nitrogen, 1 oxygen. We're going to add that to 2 O2. So that means there's 2 times 2 oxygens, which is 4 oxygens, plus 1 over here is 5 oxygens and 1 nitrogen. Is that what you see over here? No, you only see 2 oxygens. So that means that F can be crossed out right away. Let's continue on with this process. Here is 2 times NO2. So there is going to be, we're going to add this, is 2. So there will be 4 oxygens here because 2 times 2 N and an O, 2 N's and 2 O's. So it's 2 N's and 4 O's. That's not what you see over here. That's not balanced. And answer choice A says the same thing over here. It's 2 times O2, which is 2 times the subscript 2, which is 4 oxygens, plus 1 is 5, 1 nitrogen, 5 oxygens, and here is 2 times 2 is 4. So we're missing 1 oxygen over here. That is not balanced as well. Answer choice J, we have 2 times 2 nitrogens, so a total of 2 nitrogens on the far right. So we see 2 nitrogens over there, and now we see 2 times 2 oxygens is 2, and then we're going to add it to 2 more, so there should be 4 oxygens on the right. 2 times 2 subscript 2, 2 times 2 is 4. That is a balanced equation. Remember, it's like taking and just, these all have to equal what's on the left and the right. You can't just magically have things appear or disappear in a balanced equation. This is a basic chemistry principle. If you haven't had this in school yet, please write a note, put it in your Genius box for future reference. 32, the correct answer when you balance an equation in chemistry is going to be the answer J. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 33. Number 33 reads, NO2 is readily dissolved in H2O to form a strong acid, while NO and O2 do not. Suppose the final contents of syringe 1 from each trial of trials 1 through 4 had been injected into one of 4 5 milliliter samples of pure H2O. The pH would have been the lowest in the sample injected into syringe 1. Contents from where? First thing you want to do here, this is a lot of information. Let's go ahead and circle the important stuff. Here's what it says. NO2 is a strong acid. We'll need to know that. We're looking for the one that has the lowest pH. Some outside information here that might help is pH. If you have 0 to 14, right in the middle you have 7, and neutral is 7, basic is 14, and anything that's closer towards 0 away from the neutrality is going to be an acid. It tells us we're looking for the pH that's the lowest, that is the most acidic, and that is reconfirmed up here because it's saying that NO2 is acidic. So basically what that means, if you translate this information, listen carefully, and I want you to look at this carefully after I say this. because I make this very easy for you. You want to go to these trials 1, 2, 3, and 4 and see which one is the most acidic. And how do you know it's going to be acidic? Because it has the most NO2 in it. Go ahead, read this question again and see what I did. I just put this into my own words and made this extremely easy for you to understand. Go look at trial 1, 2, 3, and 4 and see which one has the highest volume of NO2, because when it has a high volume of NO2, it will be more acidic and the pH will be the lowest. Let's go ahead, we'll scroll back up and take a look at trials 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll go up here to table 1, look at trials 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now we'll come over here, we're looking for NO2, NO, O2, final volume, NO, O2. Here's the column. Which one is the most acidic because it has the most NO2? You see that 40 is by far the most. You scroll on over and see that that is trial 2. It's got the most NO2. We'll go down and take a look at our answer choices. And you see for practice problem 33, B jumps off the page because trial 2 contains the most NO2, which is an acid and is going to lower the pH. B for 33. Remember, put this in your own words whenever it's longer than 2 lines long in the question stem. Test 68A, Science, Practice Problem number 34. Number 34 states, which of the following best describes what occurred to the plunger of syringe 1 during trial 2? When O2 was injected from syringe 2 into syringe 1, the distance between the end of the plunger and the syringe tip did what? A couple things we can do here. We'll do this 2 ways. The first thing is we need to go up and find trial 2. You can go ahead and take a look at Table 1, Trial 2. Here's Table 1 that deals with Trial 2. And if you look here, here is syringe 1 right here. So that means that this is syringe 2. And we go from the starting of the contents here. We've got 40 volume of NO, 20 volume of O2 with a final volume of 40. Now we inject syringe 2 into syringe 1, and the final contents are NO is 0, O2 is 0, and NO2 is 40. So you see we went from here, a volume of O2, to a volume of 0. So we go from 20 milliliters to 0. So let's go ahead and draw this out, just kind of kid logic-y. Say that we have 2 plungers here, and here's a tip, here is a tip. Plunger is kind of like a little injector, like if you're going to get a shot or something. And we've got some stuff in here, and we inject from here to here. Say that this is the end of the plunger here. Well, when we push this stuff through both of these tubes here, this obviously is going to go back. So this is going to increase because we're taking contents from this one, we're forcing it through the tip of the plunger here into the tip of the plunger here, which is going to go into the reservoir here. So the force going from here will transfer through both of the tips in here and push this back. So that means this area is going to increase. That's just some common knowledge when you see that. Now, the second thing you can say to yourself is, you know that that first part is going to be increase. The second thing to keep note is this, they're asking us about the O2 content. So O2 starts at 20, and then in trial 2 ends at 0. So we have the air dissipates out, and air, the O2 part, converts with the nitrogen to get NO2. So something happens after that. That air dissipates. Let's go ahead, jump down to the answer choices. Right away, you know, just common knowledge, you know that you're going to be able to find some answer choices that are wrong right away, and we can cross them out. Well, you know that with a plunger from 2 going into 1 is definitely going to have to increase. So that means decrease doesn't make any sense because you're forcing contents from 2 into 1. Of course, 1 is going to have to expand, accept the contents from the other syringe. We're left with answer choice F and G. Here's what it says. F says increase. As the reaction occurs, then the distance will decrease. Well, this is where the O2 thing comes in. We start off with 20 milliliters of O2, and then we force it through the syringe into syringe 1, and then the end volume is going to be 0. So that means that all of a sudden now that air gets taken up, there'll be less space because it converts with O2 converts with, it's going to convert with NO2. So the correct answer is going to be answer choice F. Here is what G says, increase as the reaction occurs, then the distance is going to increase more. Well, no, because the volume of the air goes from 20 to 0, so it's where is that extra coming from? As the reaction occurs, there'll be more space available, so F is the correct answer. Now, some of you kids might be saying, all right, Professor Thomas, what are you talking about? Let's go ahead and look at this a second way. Remember, we're talking about trial 2, syringe 2 is being plunged into syringe 1, right? So let's go back up to experiment 1, and experiment 1, here is the diagram. We're going from syringe 2, this direction, into syringe 1. Let me get the pen out. We're going this direction. So here is what happens. We take the syringe, we push the O2 into the NO section here. So this now gets pushed through here. And you see that here is the back of the plunger. And now once this is completely empty, we have this because it's empty. And now this content is transferred into syringe 1. And there you see it. See, O2 goes right there, this part, and NO goes right there. So that makes sense. This information, or this material, is pushed through here into here, so of course it's going to increase. Number 1. Number 2, then you simply look at the next diagram, and you see that once the O2 dissipates here, you see that the plunger pulls back, and you know that because there's an arrow right here. 2 ways you can derive the correct answer. You can either look at figure 1, or you could have seen this if you looked at the information up here in table 1. Either way, the correct answer that is going to derive for 34 is going to be answer choice F. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 35. Number 35 states, if an additional trial had been conducted in study 1 with a length of 0.030 meters, P for the additional trial would most likely have been what? First thing we need to do is we're given new information to plug into our chart in table 1. That's the length of 0.030. So let's scroll on up, take a look at table 1. And here, now we see that trial 1 is 0.020, trial 2 is 0.040, and we basically want to take 0.030 and plug it in right between trial 1 and trial 2. And when you do that, you will see that the p-value that we're searching for is going to have to be between 0.75 and 0.94. Let's look for an answer choice that says the same thing as what we just saw there. C, between 7.5 and 0.94. It's as easy as that. They give you new information. You just have to take the information and plug it into the table and see what the predicted value would be. Once again, problem 35, the correct answer is going to be C. Test 68A, science practice problem number 37. Number 37 says, object A and object B each consists of a pair of spheres connected by a rigid wire of insignificant mass. The four spheres are identical to each other. Each object is suspended vertically from a support at a distance L above the object's center of mass as shown in figure below. So let's go ahead and take a look at A, which is here, and B, which is here. And then you see here is the support. And from the support down to the sphere on A, and here's the support down to the sphere on B. Here's what we're asked. L is the same for the two objects based on study 1 and 3. Which object has a greater moment of inertia? Moment of inertia. Let's go ahead and define what moment of inertia means from up in the mini intro paragraph. Here it is right here, and what does it say? In each trial they computed the moment of inertia in kilometers of the pendulum. I, which is the moment of inertia, is a measure of the mass of the pendulum and how the mass is distributed. So how is the mass distributed? Let's go back down over here, and you can see that the definition, how the mass is distributed, well, here is the support. Even though the distance between the support and the center of mass is the same on both of these, you see the distance between the sphere and the support is not. That means that this one is longer than this one. How is the mass distributed? It's distributed different because object A has a larger distance between the support and A. Let's look for answer choices that say something similar to what we just said. Answer choice A says this. Object A, because the average distance of the matter of the support is greater for object A than it is B. So which one has a larger moment of inertia, the greater mass distribution? Of course this one does, because this has a longer distance than this from the support to the mass. Let's do an actual practical example here. Let's do a real life example. Let's just say that you have like a jump rope, and you swing the jump rope over your head, and this is the top of your hand, and then at the end of the jump rope there's like a little ball. This one, you're going to be able to swing this around in circles faster, right? And if you were to like whip somebody with it, it would probably sting. And then this one is probably going to take some more time for you to get it up to speed, but if you whipped somebody with this one, it's going to hurt a heck of a lot more, because this one has got a larger moment of inertia. It's got more inertia. because it's got that extra distance on there. So A is going to be the correct answer here. It's got a larger distance. If you don't get caught up in all the phraseology here, you see that basically you know that A is going to have more because this length is longer than any of the other answer choices. Let's go ahead and cross out some of the other answer choices. Right away, you know C and D are both out because it says B has a larger distance in matter from the object. You know that that's not wrong. That's not correct because you can just by looking at it, you can tell the difference. And also, you know that it's going to have more inertia because this is going to be longer. So C and D both could be crossed out right away. Let's look at B just for fun. B says object A because the average distance of the matter from the support is less from object A than it is from object B. Well, you know that that's wrong because just by looking at it, you can tell that that's longer. Answer choice A is the correct answer. Try and think of practical terms that you can put all of your sciencey stuff into. You see that practice problem number 37, the correct answer is going to be answer choice A. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 38. Number 38 says, in which of the following trials in Study 3 was the frequency of the pendulum's oscillation the greatest? First of all, frequency means we're dealing here with Experiment 3, which frequency is a completion of a full cycle. So we're going to swing this from here all the way around here, and that will be one cycle. And then we're going to see which one is more frequent, which we can get around quicker. Let's go back up into Experiment 3 and take a look at trials 11 through 14. And here we go, 11 through 14. It looks like 11 here produces a time of 1.19. 12 is 0.91. Trial 13 is 0.83. Trial 14 is 0.81. So you see that as we increase the trial number, the time is going down, which means we are going to be more frequent. So the answer is going to be answer choice trial 14 because it's more frequent. It's a shorter time period, 0.81 seconds. J is the correct answer. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 39. Number 39 reads, prior to the studies, 4 students made predictions about which of 3 types of physical pendulums, if any, would have the shortest P for a given length L. First thing we want to do is we want to define P. When we go back up into the mini paragraph here, you see that P is the period, and the period is defined as the average time it took to complete one complete cycle. Here are the studies. That means we're going to go from here all the way around back to the beginning. Which one would have the shortest P, or quickest time to complete a full cycle? Here is what the student said. Student W said they predicted it would be a solid sphere. Student X said it would be a circular plate. Student Y said it would be a spherical shell. And student Z said it would be the same for all of them. So what we can do is go back in here and let's start comparing. We see spherical shell and the solid sphere. So let's see which one is going to have a shortest P, which means a complete cycle. So you're looking for something that's going to go fast. If you look at figure 2, table 1, you see that we're dealing in this particular problem here with a sphere, solid sphere. And in figure 4, we're dealing with the shell. So this will give us some information as far as which one is going to go faster to complete P, which is a complete cycle. So the sphere, it looks like we've got a length of 2, will produce 0.94 second P, and here is 0.2 for the shell, it's 1.9. So right away you can see that the sphere is got a shorter time period, which means it's got a faster cycle. So right away we see with trial 1. Then we look over here, 0.4 gives us 0.75. 0.4 gives us 0.91, and so forth. You see that the sphere has all of the values at the same lengths as the spherical shell. These are all the same, and you notice that the p-value for the shell is larger. So right away we can go ahead and cross out the shell. The shell gives you a longer p-value. We're looking for the shortest. Second thing to do is to keep in mind that we already know that answer choice Z, student Z, says they're all the same. That can be crossed out right away because we already know that the shell is slower than the sphere. They're not the same, so Z is out. So now we're left with the solid sphere and the plate, and let's just do some kid logic here. If you swung a plate on a string around your head versus a sphere around your head with the same mass, which one would you be able to swing around faster? Because of other forces involved, you know that the sphere is going to go quicker. So the sphere is the correct answer. Who said the sphere? Who predicted that? It was student W. So the correct answer for student W is answer choice A for practice problem number 39. Test 68A, Science Practice Problem number 40. Number 40 reads, in trial 4, approximately how long did it take for the pendulum to complete 20 cycles? Make sure that you see this and you understand you're looking for 20 cycles. What we need to do now is go back up, look at trial 4, and see how long it took to complete one cycle, and then multiply that by 20. Let's go up and find cycle 4. Trial 4, and in trial 4 is right here, and the time is 0.72. 0.72 times 20 will give you 14. The correct answer, therefore, for this problem is going to be answer choice H. One cycle, once again, 0.72 times 20 is going to give you about 14 seconds, so that will be answer choice H. The tricky part of this question here is after you find trial 4, find the time, and then you have to multiply by 20, that second part. A lot of kids miss this question because they misread this question and only complete half of it. They go up and they say F is the correct answer because one cycle is 0.72. They say, oh, that's pretty close. F is the right answer. But they didn't multiply it by 20. So make sure that you know exactly what you're doing. If you have to read this question stem again, sometimes there will be two things that you need to do, two-part question. Read it and then check it and then read it again before you move on to the next question. 40, therefore, is going to be answer choice H.